Oh, goodness. This week we're fishing at Stuart, Florida, and we're targeting Goliath Grouper. This is a unique area. There's a lot of Goliaths in this area. The scientists aren't even sure why. It's been discovered that fish as far away as Georgia migrate to this area to spawn. We're fishing with Justin Grubich. He's an ichthyologist. I had to look it up, but all that means is this guy is a fish expert. All right, sitting here in Stuart, we got something totally different. We're gonna be targeting Goliath Grouper. Justin Grubich, he's my expert. What's your history?
So I got my doctorate in fish ecomorphology, so I study how fish relate to their environment in terms of how they feed, how they reproduce. Ecomorphology.
But what was the word?
Ecology and morphology.
What was the big word that you said?
I'm also expert in ichthyology, which is the study of fishes in general.
Okay. Well, I pretend to be an expert in the study of fish too, but just a little bit different, trying to catch them. But
That's
I'm not
right.
an expert.
That's right.
So, what do you think? We're gonna hit some of the structure, some of the bridges, and try to get some juveniles. And you know, this is the habitat, right? I mean, inland estuaries.
Historically, this has been a great habitat for Goliath Grouper. You know, they love structure. Obviously, you know better than I. They love, you know, high relief structure, and they sit in the current and, you know, wait for things to come by. And so yeah, I'm excited about. I haven't done a lot of bridge fishing for Goliath, so this is sort of a new experience for me. I've done most of it down in the Everglades.
So let's get out there. Let's see what we can get on this structure. Hopefully we can pull a couple out. If we get them here, you know, great. If not, maybe we'll head offshore some of the wrecks and see if we can get some bigger ones. But we'll take what the day gives us and hopefully catch a couple Goliaths.
You know, Stuart and Central Florida area and Jupiter, these are some of the best known spawning aggregation sites are just offshore here on the reefs. And this is essentially the epicenter of Goliath Grouper abundance to date. Since the moratorium that was put in place back in 1990, the population of Goliath has rebounded quite well. We don't know how well it's recovered, but in terms of the total geographical range of this species, this is the epicenter right now, is this area. And so it's a very special place, and the fact that we have so many juveniles and subadults and adult fish in this region is really quite special. And you know, as an apex predator, Goliath groupers are really important to maintain a healthy ecosystem. And when you have a healthy ecosystem, you have sustainable fisheries. And you know, catch and release fisheries like the Goliath that we have here in Stuart along these bridges is a really special thing. It'd be a shame to, without the right data and fishery stock analysis, to open it up and do undue harm to the population.
What'd I do if I can't? Go.
Jack? Oh, something.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
Is that the one we want for the?
You know what?
The big guy.
I don't know if we want to catch the big jack right away, but stick him in the live well. Well, so this is interesting. These make great Goliath grouper bait, and you think we caught him right where the Goliaths sit, and you would think that he wouldn't be in there because he'd get eaten, but what they're finding is that these Goliaths are not actually, their diet doesn't consist of this type of fish. They're more of a opportunistic,
they'll eat this
lazy.
when it's opportunistic on the end of the line because they can catch them.
Right, so people think on the wrecks that they're eating everything off the wreck, and you know, they're just there set up because they know if there's a snapper hooked on a line, he's an easy target.
Yeah.
Normally they're gonna sit there, and they've done these studies, these feeding studies I was reading, where a giant part of their diet, you can speak to it better than I, a giant part of their diet is just crabs.
Yep, just crustaceans.
Which is amazing. I've caught so many Goliaths with blue crabs in this same spot, just stuck in their throat. So this isn't little fish fishing, obviously. This is great structure for them, right, Justin? With, you know, people think that this is a solid cap, but this is just sitting on individual pilings, and all that is you got to imagine how much environment is under there for them just to sit there around all those pilings and just wait for bait to come to them as opportunistic feeders. Justin was saying they were.
Yeah, all this structure they've built out with the bridge and stuff really is it's conducive to, you know, big Goliaths. They love that ledges and high relief structures to sit and wait. They're big ambush predators, you know. Yeah, they generally don't want to spend a lot of energy, so they eat kind of slow-moving things that can't really get away.
You know, you're bringing up a snapper on a reef. It's a sitting duck. It's an easy target.
Yep, exactly.
There he is. There he is.
Oh!
Real-Time Florida Sportsman is brought to you by Penn. Let the battle begin.
There he is. There he is.
Oh!
Oh my goodness!
Better you than me.
Oh! Woo! Oh! God, there you go.
Nice
A
one.
little butterball right there. Oh my God.
Get my gloves up.
Look at that fish. Barely hooked. Right in the corner. I don't want to pull them off.
Oh!
How much do you think that one weighs?
Well, that's probably 30 pounds, maybe? 20, 30 pounds.
And what about the grab? You know, so many people say, oh, you stuck your hands in the fish's gills. A lot of times if you reach in the gill plate, it's like a tarpon. You're not damaging the gills, you're just reaching in, grabbing the gill plate and holding onto the plate itself, keeping your fingers away from the gills themselves. So
This is actually the hyoid bar, which is...
So it's almost like a little handle, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
so-
okay to grab there.
Right here, this is the hyoid bar is part of their feeding mechanism. That's what lowers the jaw and allows them to expand their jaws into that big orifice that sucks the prey in. So that is not actually part of the breathing apparatus.
Prehistoric. What I always am amazed by is these dorsal spikes that are just, incredibly rigid. Almost, that could do some serious damage to you there. Hooks out. Hooks out. Let me clear the hook out of your way. There he goes. Nice. Good job. That was a targeted species. That didn't take long. Well played.
The fact that these bridges are supplementing that juvenile nursery habitat that in nature is usually mangroves. So down in Chokoloskee in the Everglades, the nursery habitat that's critical for juvenile and subadult Goliaths before they head offshore are mangrove. And mangroves across the state have been in decline for several decades. So not only from storms, but from coastal development. So when you have a declining habitat and increasing fisher pressure, that's just only going to lead to degradation of a fishery. The fishery's been closed for 28 years.
28 years, closed season.
28 years, and we don't really have a good, the longest lived individual known was 37, but it's suspected because of their size and growth rates that they end up living a lot longer.
So we don't really know.
No, because once we closed it, the fishery was so overfished back in the 90s that, you had very few old fish, and right now we've had 28 years of a closed fishery, so you have a lot of 28-year-old fish out on the reefs and stuff.
The divers could pretty much just go and decimate them if they have a season of spearing, right? You can pretty much go swim up and pet one. There he is. Snook.
Oh, snookums.
Pretty bad bycatch. We're Goliath grouper fishing. This is not what we're looking for. But it's funny though, you know, again, these snook, people would think, oh, that giant Goliath grouper in there is going to eat all the snook and kill all. That's not the case. They all live together in a big happy family. Those Goliaths are opportunistic and they're going to eat it when they can.
Real-Time Florida Sportsman is brought to you by Ray Marine. Don't just go fishing, go hunting underwater.
There's a lot going on right now with Goliath Grouper. The FWC is currently reviewing and looking and possibly entertaining the ideas of opening a season. And this is huge. This season has been closed for over 20 years. There's a lot of different opinions on what is taking place during this closed season. So as many people there are that fish for Goliath Grouper, there are as many as opinions on what to do with Goliath Grouper. What are your thoughts? Limited quota season? Or are you okay with it staying closed?
I think closed is the prudent way to go, simply because we don't have enough data. We don't have enough good science yet on whether the population could sustain a harvest. You know, there's these anecdotes that, you know, they're recovered and everything, but the juveniles like you just caught got really hammered in 2010 with that cold snap that killed all the snook as well.
Right.
So we lost a lot of the juvenile population in that cold snap as well. So
the stance of Florida Sportsman magazine is we feel as if there should be some form of open season, whether that's a limited tagging system, almost like they've done with the alligators to control the population. That's the stance of the magazine. Talking with Justin, a lot of the scientists feel as if the jury is still out, that there's not enough information out there. They really don't know enough about the population to make that decision. So again, there's as many opinions out there as there are people fishing for them. That's it, that's it. Right one? Walk them forward if you gotta. Acting like it. Yep, definitely acting like it. Or it's a big snook.
come on, fish.
That's him, that's him. Nice.
All right.
Let me get my gloves on here. Hold them there a minute. More manageable size. Oh, this is a nice little one here. This is kind of a little juvenile, right?
Yep. You probably pick him up a little bit if you want.
I can sport him by the belly and just give him a little raise.
Yeah.
That's, how old would you suspect that this fish would be?
It's a young fish. I mean, I got it probably two or 3 years, maybe 2 years, maybe.
Oh, really?
He's
We don't even know how long these guys live.
No, we don't. I mean, the oldest known individual is 37 years old, but we suspect the really big ones, you know, got much older than that.
So this is a juvenile, and these guys kind of, you know, you usually find these in the mangroves, right?
Yeah, I mean,
this size.
Their natural habitat as juveniles is in the mangrove habitats.
So
sure.
obviously here we don't have a ton of mangroves. You think they're utilizing all this structure as a, you know, artificial habitat, you know, for their
absolutely,
like a nursery?
You know, so in Chokoloskee and the Everglades, where there's a lot of mangrove habitat, they're using these overhangs to hide out from the mangroves, and this is just, you know, an artificial representation of that in these bridge pylons.
There's a lot of them down here this size.
So this guy will stay in the river. I mean, he's, you know, probably a couple, 2-3 years old, and once he gets, you know, around a meter, 4 to 6 years old is when they start moving offshore to the reefs and start spawning.
And like we keep mentioning, you know, this is, we catch a snook and then you catch a Goliath, and there's bigger Goliaths that have the potential to eat snook in here, but these fish are cohabitating. These guys aren't down there feeding on the snook. And as far as food value, they weren't even harvested for their food quality back then. It was more of a...
Yeah, it was a lot of trophy fishing, you know. You saw the old photos hanging up on the dockside, you know, especially there's a lot of them in the Keys. And, you know, I think a lot of those fish went to cat food, actually.
That's crazy, because, you know, these bigger ones probably have a higher mercury content. It's not the fish you want to be eating.
You know, there's indications and evidence that they're traveling, you know, some individual travel as far as Georgia to come down to these spawning areas.
Georgia.
Georgia.
We get Goliath groupers here in the summer. You can see how this, it
Go off the
hinges
trees
out.
forward, yeah.
You know, it's just like a giant hinge that enables it to completely open and take in a large prey.
Yep.
Big blue crabs in this area. That's what this one's probably feeding on. All right, I'm gonna let this one go. Just to get on a boat with somebody with so much knowledge, it's really an honor. I mean, you meet people in life and you realize the depth of knowledge that some people have is mind-boggling. I don't know how you could possibly fit that in a brain, but he knew so much about fish, about their feeding habits, and about, you know, their life cycles and their habitats. It's an honor. It's an honor to get out there, to spend some time on the water, and to really learn so much about a fishery that I thought I knew a lot about. And you quickly realize that you don't know. You don't know everything, and there's always something to learn from somebody.
Real-Time Florida Sportsman is brought to you by Yeti Coolers, built for the wild.
So Goliath Grouper are what we call an apex predator. And the apex predator essentially is at the top of the food chain. We know Goliaths feed on lower trophic level species, mostly crabs that make up the majority of their diet. They also feed on scad as well, but you know, when you have a lot of apex predators in an ecosystem, that suggests you've got a healthy working ecosystem. And when you have healthy working ecosystems, you have, you know, sustainable fisheries. And so you have a really fantastic catch and release fishery here for Goliath Grouper. You know, keeping the fish in the water a lot more valuable than taking them out of the water.
Get in front of the boat, get in front of the boat.
Come on, George. Well, that's a good fish. We're good. Oh.
Another one that you would call a juvenile. Oh. Oh. God. He was in there eating it. Finally. That was the one that was messing with that bait the whole time. Ah. Woo! Son. A little butterball. I can't imagine hooking a several 100-pounder in here.
I couldn't eat it.
Oh, God. Nice one.
Yeah. Oh.
Like gator roll, you know? You ever have them just start there and roll on you? God. How much do you think that one weighs?
I'm always bad at weights, but it's got to be 30 pounds.
It's amazing how strong they are. I mean, this is 400-pound cable, drag's locked all the way down. I always said the only drag on this reel is my feet across the deck. And you saw it right there.
Yeah.
Whew. That was all I could do to pull him out of there. This cable is just about, you know, this is what you need in that heavy structure. Golly, and that's a juvenile. You would call him a juvenile.
Well, this is he's like a sub-adult, like a teenager. You know, he's going to be heading off to the reef probably next year. So he's probably 3, 4, 5-year-old fish. You know, this fish could be, you know, come this summer, be heading offshore to join some of the spawning aggregations you have around here.
Help create the future population.
Exactly. Gorgeous animal.
God, they're just prehistoric looking too.
Yeah. All indications are that they probably get much older, over 40 years old, and so they're slow to mature. They get very large, and they concentrate in these spawning aggregations, which makes them susceptible to fishing pressure, especially during the spawning months, during the summer, during the full moons when they're out there in those aggregations. Another important component to understand is like the juveniles that we have here in the estuary, here in St. Lucie and Stewart, are incredibly susceptible to episodic environmental events like cold kills and red and brown tide effects. For example, in 2010, we had a cold kill that killed a lot of snook, but it also killed a lot of juvenile Goliath grouper. And if you look at population abundance of juveniles, right at that 2010 cold snap, there was a rapid decline in population biomass of these juveniles. So it's good to see that we caught a few of these juveniles here today, and hopefully they're bouncing back.
All right, boys. Reset. The only drag is going to be our feet across the deck.
You know, there is snapper fish sitting on the dock of a bay. Roll away.
Do you guys fish?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I fish.
You don't. Give Daddy a kiss. All right, go. But then again, there's and then again, there's